People just need to turn on.
Yeah, that's me. It's like imagine.
Yeah.
Like four guys slash. Yeah, four guys. They find people shout. They find people.
Good. I assume she didn't lost. Did you walk us? Yeah. So I walked in and said, maybe we could walk together.
Yeah, it's a little warm though.
It is. It is.
It's number 13.
It's a nice dog. The guy.
So it's fast. Okay. It's fast. Yeah.
It makes me sad.
All good?
Yes.
And they like to keep it
Yeah.
balanced.
Airplanes. We're not missing out.
Not just if you don't make it for you.
So we should.
But, you know, we're on the solid ground here, so.
Well, they're tired. Okay, maybe we should get started. Hi. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Hillsborough TPO ITS Intelligent Transportation System Committee meeting, a meeting that's held on a quarterly basis. Welcome, everyone, and we'll just jump right in, and I will officially start the meeting. So call to order and introductions. So I called that meeting to order. So introductions, I'm Margaret Kubelitz from the city of Tampa, and I am the co-chair.
Brian Sayas, Hillsborough County Vice Chair. So, yeah.
Paula Crackbush, DOT District 7.
Emmett Durant, FDOT District 7.
Judith Villegas, Via.
Achilles Vitelis with Cara de Set.
And Terry Walsh, TPO staff and ITS committee liaison. And I believe online we have Brenda Baxter and Ron Patel who are attending virtually. And Dexter Corbin as well, our is attending virtually. And with that, we do have an first report.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for showing up in person and grateful for technology to allow us to host it on a Teams meeting as well. One of those great things that came out of COVID. They are still there. Okay, so we have the next phase of this is the public comment period. So is there anyone here to speak? You have 3 minutes. Okay, no one's making a move. Anyone online wanting to make comments?
No one online and no one who has signed up previously.
Okay, so we'll just move right ahead. So approval of the minutes from February 5th, 2026. Did everyone receive a copy of the minutes? Yes. Okay. Do we have any corrections or comments, modifications to the minutes? No. Anyone online?
Not that I am seeing online.
Okay, so with that, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Yes, motion to approve the minutes for last meeting.
Second,
That's it.
did they catch that?
Brian Sayas was the motion there.
Achilles was the second.
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None being heard, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We have one action item today, and that is for the FY 28 through 32 TPO priority list, and that'll be presented by Harry Walsh.
So one correction, Elizabeth Watkins was able to make it today, presented this her project, so.
Oh, that's even better.
Between briefings, so I really appreciate very, willing to pitch in if I needed it. So I'm Elizabeth Watkins, the TPO staff. I'm here today to present to you the priority list. So what exactly is this list and how is it used? Well, just like it sounds, it is a prioritized list of projects for certain federal funding sources. And they're typically 5 years out. And that's due to kind of just the maturity and business process of the FDOT work programming cycle. So while it mainly prioritizes projects for that funding source, it can also be another way to communicate to DOT and lead on their facilities. It's really nice because it syncs up with their work program process. Although we all know we have excellent partners in District 7, so there are many ways to communicate with them. And then finally, it shows community support for projects. There are some projects on this list that aren't actively seeking TPO funds, but they're on there to help bolster their grant applications. Developing this list is a really an all hands on deck approach. We rely on our partners with the local agents at the local level, whether it be a municipality or HART. They're the ones that are actually identifying and submitting the projects. And that's really important because they're the ones that are going to develop the project, build it, operate it, and maintain it. The TPO also has an important role of determining those priorities, setting the long-term vision, and really having a data-driven process to evaluate the projects and then continue to monitor that investment performance. DOT also has an important role. They're the ones with the money bags, actually programming the dollars, so putting the money on the projects. And with that really important responsibility comes more responsibility, which is oversight of any federally funded projects is done by District 7. You all know this, but this presentation also goes to our Citizens Advisory Committee. I just wanted to emphasize that not all transportation needs are on this list. We're really strategic about what's on there and what's appropriate. One, to be federalized, or two, what will probably go after a discretionary grant and those sorts of things. And that you all do an amazing job with your CIP viewers and work program viewers, so thank you for that. A few things have changed since last year. We do this annually, but we're trying 2 new things. The first of which is we used to combine our priority list with our transportation improvement program, but we're separating them. So we're bringing the priority list earlier to have that discussion. And then the transportation improvement program, which is that actual work program of projects, that comes in June. There's a relationship to them, of course, but we thought they're both important on their own and they warrant that unique discussion. The second thing that changed is really the format of it. So this is the same exact project, just displayed a little bit differently. So what we were trying to achieve with this is to have more detail, both on the scope of the project, but also the timing, the funding, and its readiness. So we've broken out by each of the project phases, if it's been complete, what year it was complete, if we know that information, the estimate for any future phases, and the tentative programming date, if we knew that. As practitioners, you all know how important different project readiness factors are. So we've added these 3 icons to demonstrate, 1, do we have a detailed scope? 2, do we have a detailed engineer's estimate in which we can develop those cost estimates and then, turn them into programming? And then finally, that intangible of collaboration and coordination. We can't do anything in a vacuum. So are there other partners that need to be looped in? Those kind of intangibles that we consider to be critical path to getting a project stood up. Then on the far left, I hope that this is intuitive, but we have the project ID number. If it is seeking funding, what is that amount? What phase is the municipality or jurisdiction seeking for? And then what ultimately is that recommendation that we're making to the TPO board? So now I'll get into some of the projects on this draft list. So there are 40 projects in total. 31 are those that we consider just to be seeking community support. They're not actively looking for those TPO dollars, which are about $20 to $25 million per year. But then there are 9 that are. So I won't go into all of 31, but you'll see a trend in some of these projects. These are big dollar projects that need other grant sources or financing strategies to deliver. From a transit perspective, the Peacock streetcar extension, our Hearts arterial bus rapid transit. Both of those are currently in PD&E and are being scoped out, but we're keeping them on this list as our partners at the city and HART scope those projects out, study them, and then determine how they want to finance them. I-275 widening from Hillsborough to Pierce has been a TPO board priority that we keep on this list, as well as the county's priority of widening Van Dyke and adding a trail, and then HART's heavy maintenance facility. I'll spend more of the time, though, talking about those projects that submitted applications, estimates, are actively competing for those TPO funds. So you'll recall the TPO has 5 different investment categories, one being smart cities, any kind of technological or like even a turning movement or intersection improvement change, basically small scale things that can have a big difference in terms of congestion management. State of good repair, maintaining the assets that we have. Vision Zero, safety, real choices when not driving, those are typically our trail projects. And the major projects for economic growth, your widenings, your big skyway transit, those high dollar and high complexity projects. So smart cities is the #1 priority of our board. So one of the top ranked projects is an application from Hillsborough County to continue their investments in their smart traffic network. And Mr. Zayas knows way more about that than I do, but I'm really excited about this investment because it's my understanding that it builds on a previous plan within a federal discretionary grant to really use technology and upgraded hardware to strategically manage congestion on corridors. So this request was for $5 million for various intersections in the eastern part of the county, namely Bloomingdale, Boyette, Fishhawk, Lumsden, and Parson, and then one corridor out in Town and Country, Racetrack Road. From a good repair and resilience, we have 2 applications from HARTS that have been longstanding relationship and partnership that we've had in supporting both their bus stop capital improvements as well as their vehicle replacement and midlife overhauls. The vehicle replacements, that is requesting $5 million. Over half, so 75 out of 130 buses are beyond their useful life. And FTA determines that being 500,000 miles or 12 years old. And the HART mechanics are doing a phenomenal job of squeezing every last mile out of those buses. I saw some recent data where they've got buses pushing 500, 600, even 700,000 miles. So they're, again, doing the best they can and maintaining those vehicles to have the important transit service that's on the roads today. The city of Tampa submitted 2 requests, both for bridge rehabilitations in downtown Tampa, Roraine Street Bridge, as well as the Cass Street Bridge. Roraine had a higher total project cost of $21 million, while in Cass Street, they were just requesting $8 million. So staff is recommending that we advance the Cass Street Bridge because we realize it's an important connection, but then we would be able to fund more projects down the list. But Roraine is also a worthy investment, but just to help the dollars worked out, that's what we're recommending. And then for Vision Zero, Plant City has long had a priority of improvements on College Street, which is an important connection from downtown Plant City to Midtown, which connects to local neighborhoods and commercial centers. What this request is for is to start the design phase of phase 3 from also Brook Street to Alexander Street. And that request, the total was about $2 million. The one trail project we received this year was from the county to construct the Tampa Bypass Canal Segment 6, which is from Horsby Downs to Morse Bridge Road. The request was for construction to the tune of about $2.6 million. And then finally, there were 2 requests for our major projects. So the first from the county was the Gibson Drive widening, which envisions adding 2 lanes, curb and gutter, and sidewalks. This was actually requesting state funds, something called SIGP, County Investment Grant Program. And that request was for $750,000, which we believe there's enough revenue to fund that funding source. And then finally was the Ashley Drive reconfiguration. You may have heard that the city won a grant to do stage 1 of this, so that is funded. But the city was requesting funding for stage 2 or 3 at the tune of $10 million for PE and some of construction. And given at this point, all the TPO funds have been exhausted, so we don't believe that this could be funded this cycle. So just to wrap up, really pleased this cycle because the majority of applications that were submitted are being recommended for funding. We're seeing investments across all modes, whether it's transit, highways, trails. There's a nice geographic distribution, some in the cities, some in the county, some with our transit partner. And then a really nice balance between getting things built in construction, but then also funding things for design so we can continue to have that pipeline of projects. I'm happy to answer any questions on the projects or the process, but we're seeking an action from you today to consider recommending acceptance of this list to the TPO.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Greatly appreciate that. So, any questions or discussion? Or comments?
Yeah, I just had a question. So you said that you separated the priority list from the TIP, right? So were there any, what were the criteria to separate the two other than like, what makes them priority? These projects.
What makes these projects a priority? A couple things. One, they are in alignment with our LRTP goals, so those 5 different categories. So they're consistent with our long-range plan. They were identified in coordination with our partners, and then ultimately they were evaluated on different criteria. And then they move into the TIP if they're funded.
Okay, anyone online?
Anyone online with a question for Elizabeth?
Okay. Is there a motion to recommend acceptance of the priority list?
Motion.
As the action is submitted there?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Judith makes a motion to, and Achilles will second the motion. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Was Dexter working online?
Yes, yes, I'm online. Yeah. I did say aye. Yeah.
Aye, okay.
Yeah.
Any opposed? Any opposed? None being heard, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, the next series of presentations that we have are status reports. And so the first one up is South Hillsborough County Mobility Study, presented by Stephanie McQueen, HDR.
Hello, my name is Megan Winchester. I am a principal planner with Community Infrastructure Planning for Hillsborough County, and I am the county PM for this project. And I have my consultant Stephanie here that's going to go through the whole presentation, but I just wanted to quickly introduce the project, which, so this was a project that we originally did in 2019 with Cutter. And then we are now updating it and looking at how those travel patterns have changed for South County. We used streetlight data, which something can tell you more about that I do not know. But that is kind of the essential overview of the project. And I'll give it over to Stephanie to tell you more. Thanks, Megan. Again, Stephanie McQueen with HDR. This kind of a really interesting study. It's a large area. It's roughly from the Alpine River down to not quite the Manatee County
corner. But looks like 41, 75, and 301 and the major neighborhoods areas around there. And the 2019 study looked at 19 different zones, as well as 3 different gate zones at the north end on those 3 major roads and 3 gate zones at the bottom of the study area. And the streetlight data, it's that anonymous cell phone data. The streetlight is a data provider. We were able to get, using the same methodology that I did back in 2019, we collected the data for the 2 different time periods, so 2017 to 2018, and then 2024 to 2025, it's about a year, and it's an average weekday. The number of trips that occur between the different zones, what's the trip purpose, what's the travel time for the trips, and then we also kind of looked at how many people were leaving or entering the study area and how many trips were pass-through trips. Again, like I said, there were 19 different OD zones, and we classified those as non-activity areas or activity areas. And the activity areas were defined as hubs around different key intersections. So places that would be within a 15-minute bike ride or walk. I think it's a bike shed. So they're much smaller compared to, I think, Riverview and Balm is a massive area. So some of the zones were much larger than others. So clearly, you know, this one had the most trips. It might be the largest zone. So we were kind of looking at the percent of trips, how things changed over time. And then again, I mentioned the external gate zones that were at the northern and the southern limits. And we wanted to see how people were coming in and out of the study area to their regional destinations. Our key takeaway, so before we get into some of the key findings, we know it's rapidly growing. There's a lot of travel demand. And what we're seeing is that the trips are not just for those commute trips. There's a lot of non-work trips. So people driving from home to a retail destination or from a non-home and a non-work location to other shopping malls, you know, schools. A lot of different trips were going on that were outside of that normal AM and PM peak hour travel. So that traffic congestion that's emerging is not just commute hour PM peak trips. We were seeing, as I'll show you here, all day travel was going on, which I think if anyone lives out there or drives in South County, you probably, this will make a lot of sense. It'll be very, oh yeah, that's right. But overall, there were a growing number of trips. So just when we looked at the raw number of trips, it went up in the 6-year time difference between the 2 periods that we look at. So just total number of trips. And Riverview and Balm and Waimama Rural saw the highest increase in trips. Those are also the largest zones. So that seems to make sense. But overall, it was a 29% increase in the number of trips within the entire study area. So that's a fairly big increase in just overall number of trips. There was an increase in internal travel. So these are people that are starting in South County and they are staying in South County, or they are starting or ending. So there were fewer as a percentage of the total trips that were just through trips. So, you know, driving north to south on I-75, driving north to south on 301. There were more trips that just stayed within the study area or came in or left from versus those pass-through trips that you would just expect. Like, oh yeah, there's gonna be tons of trips on 75. There's more trips on the local roads. Those shorter distance trips, not just the commuters coming in and out. And we were seeing that there was some changes in those external gate trips. So these are people that are starting or ending in the study area. So they're either leaving in the morning, coming back in the evening. We saw that there was actually a decrease in the percentage of the overall trips that left using one of the northern gates. So before it was 21% of all trips in and out of the study area left through one of the northern gates in the first time period. So back in 2017, 2018, and 4.5% left or entered in one of the southern gates. In the more recent time period, the percentage of trips, overall trips that left or entered through the northern gates went down. So it appears as though there's more people that are coming in and out of the study area to the south. So that went up slightly to 5.6% of the total trip. So more people are staying within the study area. And when they do leave and enter, the percentage that are leaving on the northern is decreasing. So there's more dependency on trips within the study area or trips that are leaving or entering down to Manatee County or going over to St. Pete up 275 and the bridge, the Skyway Bridge. So wherever they're going, there's a little less focus on that north exit or entrance. Then we looked at the intrazonal. So if you're starting and ending your trip within your same zone, there's a few different places where the trips were really high. Fish Hawk in particular, 70% of the total number of trips actually start and end within the Fish Hawk zone. So for whatever reason that they're traveling, they're not going very far. They're kind of staying around, doing their business for most of their trips within that zone. And Riverview, Sun City, and Apollo Beach were also around 40% of the trip. So a lot of people are doing whatever they need to do pretty close to home. So within 1 to 3 miles. And those trips are fairly short. So they're not the 45-minute long trips that you get from Fish Hawk to, downtown or Brandon or USF. There's a lot of these shorter trips that are going on. We also saw that some of the activity area zones, so those concentrated zones around some of the major intersections where the retail, business, medical offices, those schools are located, some of them saw some decreases in the number of trips that were heading to or from there. So up in the northern end, the Gibsonton Drive, the Gibsonton and US 41 zone, and then the Big Bend West saw a decrease. So there's less people going to those zones. And the southern zones, I-75 and 674 in Ruskin, Sun City Center, Wyoming downtown, they actually saw an increase. And I think that could be tied to the development that's going on in these zones. So there's new Walmart, there's new retail, there's new businesses going on down there. I think the hospital is been located in one of these zones. So people aren't having to head north to get to their daily needs, shopping that they need to do every day. There is more growth in the southern part of the zones that would allow them to have these shorter trips to their own local activity zone. We also saw, this is interesting, one was pre-COVID and one is post-COVID. We would expect to see a change in trip purpose. We would expect to see, we've got 3 kind of trips here. There's the non-home base. So these are, you're going from school to the mall. You're going from the medical office to the grocery store. Not home, not work. And then there's trips that go from your home to one of these places of businesses. And then the third category is home to work. So that's the blue. In the first time period, 17% of trips were home to work or work to home. And that's gone down. So it's now down to 13% of trips are just those commute-based trips. And we're seeing the home to school, home to work, or home to grocery store, those trips have gone up. So previously it was 49%, now it's up to 56%. Sorry, I'm getting about little dry mouth. So that's kind of interesting. People are just driving around more trips to do their business within their neighborhoods or within the study area in general. I think this is our last kind of slide about factoids. This one's kind of interesting and it's showing a bunch of different things related to when are people going? When are they taking their trips? And the graphic on the right shows kind of the peak of when trips occurred, and starting at 6 a.m., that's when it starts to rise, and kind of peaks in the mid-afternoon, and then it decreases in the evening. So the darker blue is the first time period back in 2017, 2018. The lighter color in the background is the more recent time period, and what you're seeing is kind of a shift where there's a big increase in the morning during the peak hour time period, and it kind of plateaus. There's not really as big of a peak as you would expect. It kind of goes up and kind of slowly increases and then falls off in the PM peak period once that finishes. So that's really showing that people are driving around all day. You're not going crazy when you're driving home from work and you're saying, why is everyone on the road in the PM peak hour? That is absolutely true. There was an 89% increase in the number of those trips that occurred between 3 and 7 PM. And we see that over in the chart over to the left that shows there were 20% of the trips in 2017, 2018 compared to 30% of trips in the 2024-25 period. So way more traffic going on in the PM peak hour. You're not crazy. It's backed up by data. Finally, we are seeing that there was some travel time improvements. The overall trips that were going on in the first time period were long. It took forever. They were longer distance trips. Now the trips that we're seeing in the city area are shorter. They're not going as far in terms of distance. And so consequently, the time difference is also right down. People aren't in their car for 45 minutes driving between Fishhawk and Brandon or Fishhawk and downtown. They are able to stay closer and have more frequent, shorter trips. There were some areas that saw some increases, but the data kind of is imperfect in some locations where the number of trips weren't so high. So we did see a few little anomalies, but overall, we're seeing a trend towards shorter trips that were taking less time. And that could be tied to actual improvements that are going on in the local market or the local transportation network that may be allowing faster trips to occur, or it's just people are only going a mile down the street. And, you know, if it's 10 minutes versus 12 minutes, it's not as big of a difference as when you're trying to commute and it's 30 minutes versus 50 minutes. So in conclusion, what are we going to do with this? What can you do with this information other than being really interested in how that has changed? And I think what this can be used for is really understanding that, you know, the commute travel is really important. Those longer distance trips from South County to the regional destinations are really important, but there is a need for support on the local network for these shorter trips. Maybe they're not going on 301, the 75, and 41. Maybe there is a need for investments on the local network. Maybe there are investments that are needed to improve signal timing or, you know, add turn lanes. There are the needs to help the local trips within the zones and between the zones. And I think, you know, we definitely saw there were definitely some pairings between some of the zones. So maybe that's something to look at in more detail, like how can you make the connections between these two zones easier, more convenient for people. And we have a lot of data, and there will be a really long report if anybody wants to dig into it, but this is kind of like the highlights, and it was really interesting to do one of these kind of before and after studies to see how things have changed, and it really has kind of evolved over time. And our report, we didn't include it in the presentation, but it kind of shows where the development occurred using building permit data. And it really does align with the findings that we're seeing with the increases of trips. So a lot of really kind of cool data and analysis, and I'm open to any questions that you guys may have or comments.
All right, thank you very much. Very good. I had a couple questions. I think you said that there was a 29% increase in data overall. So was there some sort of adjustment factor for the data points that would have been available? Because when you look at your data or TomTom data and convenience, those data points, there's, whether it's coming from a cell phone or coming from a car, it relies, if we focus on just cars, you know, it's looking for the technology in the vehicle to be able to present a point of movement. So was there some sort of adjustment to account for the penetration?
I think that's a great question. And honestly, I'm not the expert on like how Streetlight produces their data, but we could definitely look into that, because I think that's a valid point. Like maybe there are more devices that are tracking it. If it's a cell phone based device or a vehicle, those types of technology are definitely more prevalent now than they were 7-8 years ago. So I don't know the the answer for how they accounted for that at Streetlight when they released the data. I know that they used the exact same data for the two different time periods. So I would imagine that they would account for it somehow, but I think that's a great point. Maybe it's the prevalence of that technology being more available.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
You
no,
know, because we're playing with the
You made me
data.
curious now too. Thank you.
Yeah, we've been, thanks to Thea, we have access to RITIS data, and so we've been using the RITIS data to do some assessments, like when the Platte Street Bridge has to be closed. We've done a full analysis, okay, you know, where are people coming from, and when they're going to, and then how are they gonna get to where they need to go while this construction happens, and I mean, we're trying to get an assessment of that.
I got
I also really appreciate this kind of study being done because, being someone that has been in the business of planning, design, before I came to Florida, I used to do a lot of that up in Charlotte and, on the consultant side. And it's interesting to see where we used to really push quality land use planning and then making sure you have services close by and schools and, so the land use patterns are stitched together with transportation and then making sure your transportation, you're not a bunch of cul-de-sacs where the interior of the roads are not connected. And there's so many people that's like, well, I want to connect. And I'm like, well, doesn't make sense. So being in the city of Tampa, privileged that we have such a good grid. And so, I know the county, it's good to see how the data is supporting the value of having connectivity for those local trips. And this just strengthens that whole argument. So when people, you know, the naysayers, it's like, no, this is actually a really good idea. So it's nice to see it in data. Who's next? Anyone have questions, comments? Yes, go ahead.
I have, very interesting. Thank you so much. I just have a similar question, because I've worked with Streetlight before, years ago.
Okay.
So I was wondering if that's the source you used for your data. I know for distribution, they're pretty accurate. But I was just wondering if you have validated that from any
No.
other source.
No.
Or the distribution, not the, volume, just for the distribution.
No, that was the only kind of source that we looked at, because that was, again, we were following the same methodology from that 2019 study. So we wanted to, we were hoping to be able to use the exact data that they had in that study, but the algorithms of the Streetlight data have changed, and that's where it wasn't making the apples to apples comparison possible. So we pulled the historic data using the current algorithms that they use, but we didn't check it against any other data source for the OD analyses or anything like that.
No, that's easy. I know it's
Yeah.
not, there's not much data out there and they're all like models, so they have their own error. So, yeah, just, I was.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Just to comment,
Yeah, Brian.
sorry, just to comment, I've grown up in this area. And so I've seen the development and completely agree that because of the development, less people are moving. Like we didn't have a movie theater, we had to go to Brandon. And now there are like 4 movie theaters in the area. So look, things like that have built up. I think I can 100% agree with your findings. Very interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it helps validate, you know, why is there so much more traffic? You're not going crazy. Like the data really can help confirm, you know, the observations that we all have as transportation planning professionals.
Question, so compare the trips depending on whether or not they started the same zone and the different zones. You also compared how many trips between different times of day.
Yes.
But did you compare the same trip at different times of day? So how different is the performance of the trip? It happened morning versus peak times versus
If the travel times for like the peak hour trips, if they were longer
same
than
trip, same start, same end.
during the time period, we didn't do that level of kind of like cross analysis of like isolating just the trips during the PM peak hour for their travel length, but that's in data and it's available.
I can probably guess that the same trip during peak times takes longer.
That,
And
That would-
you
yeah.
mentioned that they plateau, but it's probably hitting the road capacity at that point. it doesn't matter how many more people want to go,
Yeah,
you can't. Right,
yeah.
so I'm just curious.
No, we didn't isolate like the travel time by time of day to see if those morning trips were
Same
taking
trip.
longer, same trip. Yeah,
Making
exactly.
the trip during, lunchtime is different than making it at 10 a.m.
Mhm. We've got all base data, so I think we could. County could look at that, or we could share the data however you guys want to handle that.
Thank you.
Okay, one more
Any
question.
question? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, did you set up the zones or it has been preset up?
It was the Cutter study back in 2019. They had established the zones and the explanation of how they got prepared was a little unclear to us in some of the cases. But they kind of determined them for a number of factors. They kind of used the street center lines for some of the major roads to kind of make the dividing line. And we just used the same geography. Yeah.
Did they fall in line with the TACs? Because when we did the Rittis data, it
I
fell
think so.
in report 17.
That's what I say, it must be some methodology, kind of stuff different, thesis, so stuff. Must have one.
That's, yeah, the Rittis data, that's the way it shows up for us.
It can be the same in a street, like they just compile something down to get different zones, or you can just define your own.
Yeah, these were defined by the Cutter study. I don't think they were like preset from any reason.
Okay, good. Anyone online?
Any questions online?
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
You're very well, Mary, you also, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next one up, we have FDOT District 7 Traffic Ops Update, MS.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure and opportunity for this opportunity. I appreciate it. The opportunity to present to you today. My name is Emmett Duran. I'm the District TSM Program Engineer. I was formerly the safety engineer, and as of now 5 months or so, I've taken on this new position. And today I'll kind of give you an overview of how our district traffic operations office is structured. It has gone through some changes from previous years. Some of you might remember in 2021, safety was kind of separated from traffic operations and become its own unit to push for safety. And now the engineering part of that has been moving into traffic operations as it used to be before. And then the education is still remains with the safety of this it's a unit, but we work very, very close together. You see, it's a quick introduction. I'll kind of give a quick overview of TSM&O and who the team is and TSM&O. The team has now incorporated safety and traffic services. This is all the services and these are all the services that District Traffic Operations Office provides. Statewide. I got a big announcement. Some of you already might know, so this may not be surprising to you all. Sandra Gonzalez, used to be at the Hillsborough, working for Hillsborough County. Now back to FDOT as the District Traffic Operations Engineer. So we're very excited. She's got a lot of experience in traffic operations before she went to the county. I'm sorry, the county, I may not be happy, but we're excited.
We're happy for it.
So very good. It's good to hear. A quick overview of this is our organizational chart. I know this is kind of small, so we zoom in a little bit more and later in the in the presentation. As a quick overview, Sandra oversees the District Traffic Operations Office. It's broken down in three, see if I can bring my mouse over here. It's broken down into three sections: safety, TSM&O, and traffic services. The team works together collaboratively there to different areas, which I'll talk about later in the presentation. So let's start with TISMO. So this is the TISMO organization chart. Toma is here with us. Well, she leads our freeways portion of TISMO. And Edith Wong, some of you may have interacted with her in the past. She leads our arterials, quarter segment and studies and signals. And as our main person for any ITS, fiber optic needs that you may have. Ken Worley is leading our freeway and RTMC operations there, and Sam Taylor is our expert on traffic incident management and rapid incident response and clearance. Caitlin Ruka is our interior studies engineer, and Jill Willie, which some of you may have interacted with her, is our signal systems manager for any type of signal agreements maintenance agreements with signals. And then Andrew Ward is our arterial signal specialist who works in supports construction and any new signals that are coming up. He's the person that will go there. And we have a vacancy, so if just putting a shameful plug there, just if you know anybody that may be interested, let's know. I won't spend too much time.
We're all looking for that in even the consultant.
For sure.
The county is more attractive to work.
Just
Yeah, the city's pretty cool. We're doing a lot of great things.
TISMO, you know, for those who may not be familiar with the acronym transportation, it stands for Transportation Systems Management and Operations. You know, I used to joke it's about moving vehicles, but in reality, it's about operating or improving mobility and safety, right? Without relying solely on major capacity projects. Like we try to optimize our corridors or highways to move people, as you saw in the previous presentation. Lots of people in the southern part of Hillsborough County. And that's one of the areas that we're doing some great work at DOT to optimize operations there. So our TISMO optimized operations technology and coordination, overseeing arterial operations, data analytics, travel information, work zones, freeway operations, and incident management. So we wear many hats, and we have a great team for that. I kind of wanted to highlight, we have our Transportation System Management Operations Master Plan. This was developed in 2023. It's a long document, but I can share this with you. Ultimately, it highlights or outlines a comprehensive approach to achieving a fatality-free and congestion-free transportation system. Wouldn't we all like that? That would be awesome. It highlights the components of how we're going to get there, right? You know, increasing mobility, regional collaboration, sound investment into prosperous and competitive strategies for regional economy, you know, efficient and safe, secure transportation, and making decisions that support the community's vision, right? We're not here to do it our own way. We want to work collaboratively with different stakeholders to move this forward. So a little bit on the arterial management program. So the TISMO arterial management program receives 1,200 or so signals in District 7. That continues. Actually, I should probably look into this. How many signals do we put every day out there? But this number changes significantly in our region, especially in the northern counties and Citrus and Hernando. There's a lot of expansion. Southern Hillsborough County, there's a lot of expansion. So these signals are coming on board often, and we're having to oversee those and work with you all. You know, our stakeholders for the maintenance of the signals, right? We rely heavily on that. Another area that the arterial program looks into is the integrated corridor management for incident detouring, diversion routes. You know, I-270, I-4 frame is a perfect example of that. Something that was kind of the pioneer of the diversion route program that we have here in District 7. And we've expanded to I-275 and looking to expand it to I-75 as well. We also have the arterial management program and monitors 28 arterial corridors for operations and safety. The arterial program also does a lot of permit reviews. I think I was asking earlier today, our team, how many reviews do we do? And I think they're looking at, I think, at least 20 to 30 a month permits that they get. I mean, that's district wide, right? That's not just in Multiple County, but it definitely keeps the team busy. Looking at traffic impacts, ensuring the safety and operational compliance. For studies, we get a few of those as well. Probably looking also about 18 to 20 a month. We look at signal warrants, ICE, that stands for intersection control evaluation studies, looking at ARCOS, roundabouts, where every time we do a signal warrant, we are required to do an ICE evaluation, intersection control evaluation, to determine whether an ARCOS, a restricted crossing U-turn intersection, or a roundabout is a better alternative than a signal. So we look at that every time we do a signal warrant. One of the things we get often is left turn studies, for protected permissive operations for a signal. And so we screen for, we study those. We try to make sure that we can find that balance between safety and operations. LPIs, leading pedestrian intervals. I think I'm very proud to say that District 7 has a lot of their state roads that have implemented the leading pedestrian interval in comparison to other districts in the state. And we definitely want to continue that. And we appreciate the help from our regional stakeholders and our local agencies that support this initiative as well. Another thing that we work on is audible pedestrian signals, and for ADA, that's another study that is required that we get requests on, and that's something that also takes into consideration not just the different factors, for instance, the proximity to go to residential areas, because these are signals that are constantly beeping, and so noise sometimes is a concern. So we try to make sure that we can, how we're going to make that work with for everybody that's going to be using that intersection. Construction support, force plans reviews, technical guidance, ITS, fiber optic requests, that's something we do. And then citizen requests, we get plenty of those. We get good kudos as well, not just negative requests or concerns. So I'm sure you're all familiar with those. But some of those are just related mostly to signal timings, safety, operational concerns. I wanted to share this QR code real quick for you all. This is eTraffic. If you want to know where all of our signals are, this has all of the signals in the state. For those that belong to a local agency, you might remember the traffic signal maintenance compensation maintenance agreements. So all the information that comes from those agreements actually makes it into this portal. So if you're always looking for a GIS data, this is a public facing website and ArcGIS. And then another one that I want to highlight is the ConnectPed. It's actually another really good tool that was developed by our central office in Tallahassee. And it has all the locations where speed limits are, where the bike lanes are, where the green lane marking, where it also has some demographic data as well in there that could help correlate with some analysis that you may be doing. So it's, they're there. Just them as you will, and if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to us. Midvale Crossing, that's another good one. Midvale Crossing is also in there. A little bit of the freeway management program. The freeway management is very busy. This is a 24-hour, 7 days a week operation at the RTMC. Through SunGuide, they monitor all of our highways where we have access to 288 miles where we offer for incident management. Currently, traffic monitoring, hurricane support, it's a big effort. So some of you already are aware of that. Knock on wood, right? We don't get anything this year. And then traveler information, DMS, Florida 511. Florida 511, by the way, if you haven't downloaded it, go ahead, let me know. I can direct you where you can find that. It's a great navigational app that has, you can actually look at all the cameras that we have in Florida 511 if you are curious as to an intersection that you're going to be going to. We were just doing a presentation, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, to a Temple Terrace group of stakeholders, and we told them about 511. They were like, we didn't know that existed. I was like, wow, like this has been out for a while, so I wanted to kind of highlight there. If you haven't heard about it, you heard it here. Download it today. We don't get anything for promoting it, but I mean, just clearly. And Waze, we have access to Waze data as part of an agreement. And that's also that information also goes into 40511. Waze and Google also exchange information. So, anything you may see on Waze, you may also see in Google Maps. CCTV cameras, we have 1,500 in the district. DMS, dynamic message signs, 176. DMS signs in our state roads. This is on District 7, not just Hillsborough County. In the microwave detection and as well as runway driver detection are also other components that the freeways group is looking into for maintenance and operations. One thing I want to highlight is the state has adopted a new dynamic message system policy. And the reason is because we have come a long way from into the adoption of navigational apps like Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze. And so the driver behavior has shifted. So I'm going to ask the room, and you can raise your hand or not, but how many of you use any type of navigational apps when you're traveling to work or to home, to any? Right? Yeah, very good. Yeah. So, DMSs have sometimes, we got a comment one time where the DMS was showing, different travel time that the Google Maps was showing them. And they're like, well, what are we doing? So, we shifted our policy on that and to prioritize safety and operational impact, right? We're looking at, some of you also might be doing this, we're looking at the return on investment on all the decisions that we're making. What is the value that's bringing in to our customers in the state of Florida for any just this decision, but also other decisions that we're implementing. So the default messages that you're going to see in the DMS is going to be approved safety messages only. Right now, you're going to see one from Mother's Day when you're traveling on the interstate. Take a picture, send it to me. Actually, don't take a picture if you're driving. But if you're a passenger, please take a picture and send it. I'd love to see those. And we're focusing on safety and travel time reliability. Right? So for any project that's looking into implementing DMSs or constructing the new DMSs, or we have a project that's replacing, we're doing any type of action over $100,000, we now have to do what's called a DMS action request package policy that requires our central office chief engineer approval for that installation. That takes into consideration the case analysis for the use. Is this being used for queue protection, safety, or special events or evacuation routes? Is it redundant? Do we have another DMS upstream or downstream that serves the same purpose? What is the navigational reliability for that particular segment? Is it redundant to have another DMS saying the same thing? Looking at the cost, with the operating costs, the capital costs, and as well as the life cycle support and maintenance that needs to go into this. And then finally, as I mentioned before, looking at the return on investment. If we put this in, what is the value to the public and the traveling public for safety and mobility? So, I can share an example of what that template looks like for that, but you may start seeing more of our DMSs that are going to be blank, because if there's no safety message, doesn't mean that it's no broke. It doesn't mean that it's broken. It's just there's no safety message that's going to be displaying at that time. So a lot of our DMSs may be blank for longer periods of time. Thank you. Shifting into traffic safety, real quick here. So Kelly Farley is a new safety program engineer. She came from the consulting world. Bill Rehab, some of you might remember him or have interacted with him in the past. Tracy Joseph, our safety studies engineer. And we have a couple of interns at UM and Casey Berry, and a couple of consultants that are also serve as part of the team in Pet by Consultant, like Departure, as well as Fletcher. So I want to highlight a little bit of the safety trends of what we do. This is a report that we come out with every year. Apologies, this is too small, but focusing on Hillsborough County here, we're looking in 2025 from 2024, We saw a decrease in crashes, total crashes, we saw a decrease in severe injuries, and we saw a decrease in fatality, which is great. That's the trend that we want to see. 420 assistants overall in the district, in District 7 as of March 2nd. That was the statistics in Signal 4. So 429 total fatalities in 2025. And then just 2,100 total severe injury crashes. So we're seeing a downtrend, which is great. And actually, we also saw a downtrend in fatalities and serious injuries. So, we want to continue this momentum, definitely with all your help and engagement. I'm sure we can get to zero. That is the department's goal for safety, is zero fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways.
And then on that slide, I'd just like to point out, like, from 2021, it would be really interesting to see the crash rate. So when you look at the fatality rate, back in 21, 22, the vehicle miles traveled was much lower. So that rate is much higher.
Yeah.
And so now in 2025, the number of fatalities is down, but our vehicle miles are back up
Yeah.
significantly. So that rate, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was an interesting thing
It is.
to look at, because we do look at the data from different angles,
Yeah.
so
Yes, for sure.
it's exciting. It's good to see those trends.
It's great.
Let's keep them going.
A little bit of deeper dive on the statistics, all crashes, not surprising, 93% of all crashes are non-vulnerable road users. They're not pedestrian, they're not motorcycle, they're not bicyclists. 2% bicyclists, 3% bicyclists, 2% pedestrian, and 2% motorcyclists. However, when we look at the severe injuries and fatal crashes, that changes significantly. You're seeing a bigger representation of pedestrian, bicyclists, as well as motorcyclists. And then the same thing with the fatal crashes, 12% pedestrian, the whole crash, fatal crashes, 11% bicyclists, and 17% motorcyclists. The 2% moped, this is a new mode, the moped electric bicycles, the electric mopeds, electric motorcycles. So right now, there's a lot of confusion going on. And right now, our crash reports don't capture that. They don't capture this type of modes. And I know there's been some legislation on trying to make sure that we're incorporating these modes in the crash reports, which are done by Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles. They're the ones in charge of the crash report. We don't have any influence, I guess, on that to the level of changing that. But that's something that's coming up, and I'm gonna be curious myself to see what that moped, and potentially we're gonna start adding another category here on electric bicycles. Yeah.
Will they also be able to add autonomous vehicles? I mean, we talked to TPD the other day. They said, not on the crash report anyway, but we're gonna try to get TPD to monitor as Waymo comes to town, and so, and other vendors are certainly right behind them, so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We're gonna try to track autonomous vehicle crashes.
Yeah, so part of the strategic highway safety plan, they have connecting automated vehicles as an emerging safety trend. But I think you're right. I don't think that's ever been a point of this of interest to see what percentage is connected automated vehicles. Well, automated vehicles probably don't have as many right now, but they're coming.
Just a quick note, I attended the CTST, the Community Traffic Safety Team meeting a month or so ago. They were talking about adding, and a lot of it's law enforcement that participate in that, and they were saying to add electric licensed scooters, that the earliest they'd be able to add that because of the funding cycle updated would be 2029.
Yeah.
And so I imagine that probably would be similar for connecting the top, so it'll take several years. So
Yeah, and then, the crash reports, the statewide crash report, it has to follow the minimum crash report requirement at the federal level. Right, so the federal level is still not capturing that. It might, very unlikely that it's gonna translate into the state level, but it's a point of interest, which I agree with you, and that may be something, I don't know if that conversation is actually being had, we brought up, so that's an interesting.
Well, I sure hope someone is, so by 2029, we can get it, but
I know,
locally, there's interest in making, keeping track of that, because I think other agencies across the country, they're trying to keep up with it as well, and the local level.
Sorry. Looking at the key emphasis areas, or key emphasis areas here in District 7, it's lane departure intersections and work zones is where we focus a lot of our efforts. So in 2025, we saw 121 lane departure fatalities, 151 intersection related, and 8 fatalities on work zones. From 24 to 25, we saw a decrease larger than the statewide average. As you can see that comparison there, give you an example, in departure, we saw 18% decrease compared to statewide decrease of 15%, 25% on compared to 17% statewide for intersections, and then 38% compared to 21% on work zones. So we're doing, in collaboration with all of you, we're moving in the right direction. We're making strides in comparison to other districts. And I don't know about you, but I'm a little competitive. I like to continue that trend. But so I'm sure we will get there. So just a little bit more on that. The lighting, other of the emphasis areas I mentioned, lane departure, intersections, and work zone is 3 of the emphasis areas that we focus on, especially with our safety funding and safety initiatives. But lighting and pedestrian and bicycle are also other areas that we focus on heavily as well when we're programming projects using highway safety improvement program funding, which is federal funding. Look, if there's any agencies that are looking for federal safety funds, we review their requests. They're looking at addressing fatal crashes and improving identified crash hotspots. We're looking at developing proposed improvements. We look at our resurfacing project to try to add federal funds to address safety needs, but we also can do standalone safety projects. And this federal funds can be used on all roadway types, interstate, state highway, as well as local and two roadways. Some of you may have heard the acronym LAP, LAP, and that's a whole process, that federal process that needs to be followed if we're doing anything off system, but we can definitely talk more of that later. So the priority factors when we're looking at these projects is frequency of correctable crashes. We're looking at net present value, where I mentioned earlier, return on investment for every decision that we're making. The number of fatal and severe injury crashes is a big factor, and we conduct a benefit cost analysis. And we also look at the availability of safety funds each fiscal year, right? We all have to do more with less, and we definitely try to consider all the needs to push those projects through. Moving on to finally, that's the last part, I promise, the traffic services. Joellen Godfrey is your traffic services program engineer. Some of you may have interacted with her in the past. And then under her, she's got Donald Marco, who's our access management engineer, and Christina Morales, who's our signing and payment market engineer. Under them, they have David Efrain, who review a lot of the permits and access permits that come in to the district. And Sharon and Mary Ann, they work on developing signing and payment marking plans for rapid response projects or any maintenance projects that come in. So a little bit on the signing and payment markings. Well, I didn't know that was there, but I love it. So what happens when you don't run your presentation full screen before. So one of the things of the traffic, the payment signing payment markings teams, they're looking at implementing the Rule 1451. This is one of the requests that we get a lot is guide signs. Especially commercial businesses, they want guide signs for their businesses like a winery or a brewery. And so, which they make sense when we have to inform or guide motorists to a specific location. But we need to make sure that we're following this administrative rule whenever we're looking at any type of request like this. Another thing that they work on is field observations for studies. They're looking at crash analysis, traffic count, speed studies, also a school zone speed studies as well. So if you have a school zone in your jurisdiction that may be on a state road, or you get a request like that will go to district traffic operations. Or if you already have conducted a study, if you want us to look at it and see how we can, because that needs to require its approval by the district traffic operations office on a state road to be regulated for a school speed zone. And another thing that they do is a standard reviewing plans for standards and historical periods. ERC, electronic review system, that's a system that DOT uses for plans review. So Larry Ann and Kevin Dunn work on that, and then for any traffic design and standards, Bharati, she's a traffic design engineer, and Madhu, another traffic design engineers that will help us review plans and make sure they come in compliant with anything ADA. Access management, looking at, the purpose of access management, as this is kind of redundant, you all know, is safe and efficient travel, making sure that we're balancing mobility and property access needs and reduce crashes and preserve capacity. So the access management is a perfect planning of access locations that's on design. We get a lot of permits for this. And even when we have to close our driveway or close a meeting opening because of a safety concern, we have to follow a process, right? So they review any permitted or unpermitted driveways whenever there is any plans that are coming or any projects that are coming up. They assess for safety, operational impacts, as well as other considerations. And then they do a recommendation of whether to modify it. Maybe it is a full meeting opening. Maybe you want to make it into a left turn only or a right turn only type of opening, or consolidating driveways. We may have seen some locations where we have 3 different driveways for a very small class. We probably don't need that much access, right? So can we consolidate that to reduce conflict points between safety and operations? There's a process that we need to follow, but the access team will be the one responsible for that. For driveway or median restrictions, they need to notify owners and tenants. They need to provide a 180-day notice before the design is completed. And they are required to conduct public meetings and document any comments that they receive. And that's all I have. I want to just do another shameless plug here. Youth Traffic Safety Month. It is May 1st to May 31st. And then also May is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. So if you see any motorcycles out there, look twice, save a life. So I ask it. Thank you all for your time. Questions?
Thank you, Emma. That was very good. It's good to see the, being better staffed and having people in good positions. It sounds like you've attracted some very strong talent. Glad as a partner agency, we're glad to see that. It's been very helpful at all levels.
Yes.
Yeah. And you still have Ed there, so that's important too.
Yes. Yep. For sure.
And Bill Rehan too.
Yes.
Okay, questions from anybody? Here in the room? So good? Okay.
There is one online, back on that slide, the 2 QR codes and the traffic lights. Yeah, Julie asked, what is the difference between the white signals and the red, yellow, green signals on that?
That's a very good question. I did prepare for that before. So thank you for asking that. Let me go back to this slide. This is maybe faster. Not that big. Yes. So the ones that are colored are all connected signals, interconnected signals. So these are all the ones that we have the ability to connect remotely. And those have a different rate of compensation for the local agency to maintain versus the ones that are not colored. Those are the ones that we don't have a remote connection to. You may not have a wireless communication, or we may not have cellular or fiber optic communication of any kind. So those are the signals that are sometimes maybe isolated signals, or maybe in rural areas that we haven't gotten to it yet. So they are compensated to the local agency that maintains them at a different rate than the ones that are interconnected.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Just have 2 highlights. On the Florida 511 app, you cannot see the cameras. It's intentional on the web page. You can see the camera feed. And also our team is very new. We just renovated it and it was opened a month ago. So if you haven't seen the new one, if you wanted to work, let us know.
Okay. Maybe you can host the meeting.
Oh,
You want to host this meeting?
I think we could.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Ask about that next one's office.
Yeah. That would be good.
Appreciate it. Saves me some gas.
Or we might be their hurricane preparedness. I don't mean like an active one, I'm saying in preparedness,
Oh, okay.
exchange information and a storm and all that, yeah.
Yeah, we're working on preparing that ourselves. I'm kind of looking at June, early July for that. We're working on
Okay.
preparation for that.
Yeah, that gives us well,
Yeah.
it gives me and my group to refine our process in-house, and so we're already working on it, so. No one wants to repeat them. Just. Okay, all right, well, thank you very much, appreciate it, Emmett. Okay, the next on the agenda is, the Hillsborough Avenue Smart Corridor Pilot, Amber Russo. As soon as she's coming in from online.
Yeah. Hi, Amber, do you want me to advance your slides for you, or do you want to share your screen?
Oh, I'm good either way.
I can share your screen. We can give you the permissions for that. Sure.
Cool.
This has been underway a while. Thank you. It's gonna be good to see you.
Yes, this was a great opportunity to provide a status to you all. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes. Good.
Okay. So as Margaret mentioned, my name is Amber Russo. I'm with Atkins Realis. We're the consultant working on the Smart Corridor project. Today online, I have with me my colleague Lee Woodcock, and then Alex Henry is serving as the FDOT District 7 project manager for this project. We are in phase 2, and I'll go into what phase 1 looked like, but we did select a corridor. We have chosen Hillsborough Avenue from the Veterans to just west of US 301. And we were looking for the opportunity to meet with the TPO, county, city, and this just ended up being a great opportunity to start the discussion. So thank you for inviting us. Okay, so the purpose of today, we're going to introduce the project, provide an overview, and gain some feedback as time allows. I know I don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to try to go quickly so we have time for questions. So I know some of you are members of the Tampa Bay Smart Cities Alliance. That's where this project was kind of born out of. We did a corridor evaluation. So we looked at a ton of different roadways within District 7. You can see them on the screen in all different colors. Based on a bunch of different categories, including safety crashes, congestion issues. We developed a scoring system and we ranked them to see which corridors would be best fit for a smart corridor, which, by the way, a smart corridor is basically when you have safety and congestion issues on a roadway, but you don't have the funding or the space to widen the roadway. We use different smart technologies and ITS infrastructure to help solve those problems. So as I mentioned before, the middle of the screen, the medium blue color was chosen. It's right in the heart of Tampa, and it's basically from the airport to East Tampa. And we're moving forward with that one for Smart Corridor. We did a ton of traffic analysis, and this priority matrix kind of summarizes our findings. We split it's about 11 miles, I believe. We split that into 11 segments. They are not each a mile. They're all different. Some are very short, especially North Florida Avenue to I-275 and then number 6. Those are pretty short segments. But there is good reason behind that I'm sure the traffic people can explain. So these 11 segments, we looked at different metrics, like level of service, PTI, travel time index,
of course, crashes, and then pet and bike metrics. And we ranked each one from 1 to 5 and gave them a total score to see which segments we should be prioritizing and for future phases.
Thank you, Amber. So as part of the phase 1 of the project, we developed a series of high-level concept designs and a technology toolkit. And the technology toolkit, as Amber says, has a range of technologies that we might want to consider as part of the overall smart corridor concept of operations. So from adaptive signal controls through to merging traffic warning signs, PHBs, near miss analytics, there's a range of tools that we can actually deploy to address some of the pain points that Amber identified on the previous slide through the traffic analysis piece. So what we've done is we've stepped back from that traffic analysis and start to think about how we can implement some of these technology tools to address those pains and the benefits that might be associated with those. And if we move on to the next slide, as we've gone down the corridor, we found some common solutions that actually apply corridor wide. CV, connected vehicle infrastructure, is a good opportunity at every location, every signalized location across the corridor. Automated incident detection and response using AI-powered cameras and sensors to detect crashes, stalled vehicles, etc. And MFX was really good to see the reference around street lighting on your slides. The crashes that we were seeing, we've come to the conclusion that implementing LED smart lighting across the whole corridor would be a benefit. And I think it was in District 3, a department colleague identified something like a 30 to 40% reduction in crashes where street lighting had been enhanced. So I think a really good opportunity around that technology being in place. Something that's obviously not a technology solution, but actually a real opportunity to improve is refurbish all worn out pavement markings. So that's another corridor wide recommendation that we're making as part of this phase of the project. And in terms of the traffic analysis and the technology tools, what we've developed is a series of visual maps. We will be doing the concept designs, the concept plans for this 11-mile stretch, but we do recognize they're not the best communication tools. So these visual maps that Amber is going to bring up in a second try to support the communication piece overall. So here, for each segment, we have created a specific map, and you can see as we look around what are the predominant segment challenges, from traffic safety and non-motorist to the technology solutions that we're implementing. And I think segment 7, if you think it's 7, Amber, if you jump down a few pages, is a good example. That one will work. Yeah, thank you. A good example of where we're seeing a whole range of technologies coming together to address those pain points. So each of these visual maps have been created, and we're finalizing these. We'd really welcome your feedback on the technology toolkit, any technologies and solutions as local agencies that you're already thinking about deploying or looking to deploy in the future that we should be cognizant of, and we can reflect into that overall approach as part of the finalization of these high-level visual maps. We are close to completing the concept of operations as well. So all of these things are coming together in terms of the traffic analysis, the assessment around the technology tools, the visual maps, as we move forward to concluding the project. I'll hand back to Amber.
So, oops, I didn't mean to stop sharing. Is there any particular Of course, we don't need to do a deep dive into these today, but is there any particular area that anyone wanted to see while we have it here open?
I'm fine. But
So all
Alright.
these, question, all these use cases. So I'm guessing this all gonna be done, equal to everything, or are you planning to send information to, mobile devices? Or how are these, how is it designed to work?
I'm sorry, the audio is pretty bad. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
It's a question about the infrastructure. So is it all gonna be vehicle to everything, like RSUs and OBUs, or are you also planning to send information to, mobile devices and applications?
We've been thinking it more broadly, so V2I, and also where possible, thinking about mobile devices as well. If I heard the correct question correctly.
That was it, right? So how is
Okay, I
that
just,
follow-up question on the mobile devices? So are you planning to send data, or is it gonna be a custom application, or are you planning to partner to send data to some provider for application like Waze, Google, or?
So in terms of this phase of the project, we're not being overly prescriptive in terms of any mobile-based applications and what they specifically need to look like. In terms of the integration with Waze and Google, that obviously can present challenges in terms of how they infer incidents and congestion using their algorithms. We do have the opportunity through the Work Zone Data Exchange and the work that the department's done statewide to feed information to those, and they can scrape those through the Work Zone Data Exchange, but no specific mobile-based development or specification on the back of this project at this phase at the moment.
Thank you.
yeah, I would anticipate as you add more devices, like, let's say there's key detection and other elements that it's sending information possibly to the signal controller. And then the signal controller information gets pushed out, and then it gets picked up by the vehicle manufacturers, and, or it could be a mobile device. Someone may have an app on their phone, like if they're a pedestrian, they may have an app that they can be picked up and then they can be sent messages, so.
Yeah, so to get to the app, it needs to go to the infrastructure and the internet, go to the app. This is a vehicle to everything, then it will be OBUs, with standard
Right,
V2X communication, so it depends on what they're finding.
right, I mean, it's data, and then the market ends up determining how to use the data, I would think. My respect versus having a separate app.
Even for vehicle to infrastructure, if that goes through TNC, that would be a way.
Speak up.
Even for vehicle to infrastructure, if we can have it through TFC, it can go back to the app. It's not the most convenient, but still that's possible.
Yeah, it's also possible. I mean, it's a longer trip, but yes.
Yeah. More storage, but
Some of those systems have, at the edge, they have a way to connect to the network directly, and there's
right, yeah.
a direct trip to the application provider.
Yeah, I think it's moving towards there, like in every place, but I think it's the transition period that we're still dealing with. That, middleman has to go through TNC, but other than that, I think it's gonna get there, but you have to go through transition first.
Thank you.
So as we progress through and finalize, we just, as Amber said, really welcome the opportunity to update the ITS committee on the progress that we've made so far. we'd like to further engage the city and the counties around the work that we've been doing for a more detailed conversation about each of the segments, each of the technologies, address the pain points. So this was just a quick opportunity to, like I said, just bring you all up to speed in terms of where we've been, where we've come from and where we are now.
So how is the best way for us to provide feedback based on where you are? You're looking for feedback now? And I don't mean right at this moment, more than, like Harry maybe, send out the presentation, which actually I think it's already connected to the agenda. And then maybe, is there a time frame you're interested in receiving feedback?
So we can certainly share the presentation and the visual maps as they stand today. But what we'd like to have arranged separately as well, Margaret, is a specific meeting with you and your colleagues at the city, so we can spend a little bit more time doing a page turn, because we recognise that there's quite a lot to get through today, and we're not going to kind of get through everything in terms of that detailed review. So yeah, absolutely feel free to come back with high level comments with the information that we can share. But also we will be arranging a kind of series of one-to-ones as well.
I'd also like to see like Hart participate in those, and it might be, sitting with us at the same time if we have separate agencies.
Yeah, so
as
the
we
I
other-
just sent an
And then,
email to Hart during.
Yeah, we're very keen to speak to them too.
Okay, and then, I forget about this too frequently for whatever reason, but I'm not sure. I'm assuming Hillsborough is a CIS route. So if FDOT has the freight piece that gets included, because they may have information they be interested in hearing, they'll get data, and then trucks have detectors on them as well. And then they have units, so if they may be interested in what's coming through on a smart corridor.
Absolutely. It's good call.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Margaret, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Julie Scammon from Hillsborough County. Margaret, yes, you are correct. It is a CIS route. And don't forget that air cargo in Hillsborough is where all the trucks from the airport come out.
Well, there you go.
So that's a really good point.
makes
Yep, that's a
sense.
really good point. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. I think on the east side too, what about people, what's the truck route that comes up for the fueling? Is that coming off Causeway? I don't know.
Yeah, so
Anyway,
Causeway
just-
22nd and then 50th, 41, however, yeah, that it kind of splits at Causeway, but yes, there's a ton of trucks that eventually make it up to Hillsborough versus those routes, yeah.
Yeah, if we're gonna invest in technology, we should make it as comprehensive as possible for input. I'm sure Cutter would like to participate too.
Yes.
But you're already at the Smart Cities Alliance, but we can bring you in here too. Okay, any other comments? Excellent. Thank you so much, Amber and Lee. Good
Thank
work.
you.
Really appreciate it. Okay. Coming to the close, as far as the last presentation on the crash mitigation and congestion management process. Let's see, for me. Excellent, welcome.
And hello, everyone. Taking off my liaison hat, putting on my project manager hat for right now.
Oh,
So because I am the TPO staff project manager for the crash mitigation and congestion management process update that we've been working on for the past few months. For those of you that were at our February IGS meeting, you got a broad overview of what we were looking to do. Now we've done the bulk of the data collection and analysis, and so we're coming back to you here to take a look at what we've done so far. I realize this is not being shared, so let's fix that quickly. To show you what we've done for next month, we'll be going to the TPO board and looking for their adoption or their acceptance of this. So a moment, full screen. So that last presentation is kind of a perfect bridge into this one because we're zooming out now. So they have a specific case study area, some specific treatments they're going to be recommending and trying to implement there. Here we're looking at how do we even determine where the congestion hotspots are in our network. And so overall, the background is it is a federally required duty of any MPO or TPO to create a congestion management process if they have over 200,000 people in the certain area that they serve. And obviously, we certainly do have more than that here in Hillsborough. And so the idea is pick a network, figure out what roadways in your network you want to monitor, collect performance measures, and determine where those hotspots are that need to be dealt with, and then have a general collection of tools that you can apply to congestion. So we here at the Hillsborough TPO also like to do a lot of work with safety and mitigating crashes. And so we decided to include safety as something we look at. And thus we've taken a CMP, this required document, and made it a CMP, crash mitigation congestion management process. And then we have a couple slides, then we're going to open up a web map where we have some of these layers live so we can talk through some of this. So I'm going to hand this over to the Cambridge Systematics team. Praveen Pasamarthy has been excellent in helping us with this process. I'm going to ask Praveen to go very quickly through the slides so that we can get to the ArcGIS experience.
Will do. So we looked at the for the congestion, crash mitigation and congestion management from three lenses. One is congestion, the other is safety, and the third is resilience. When you look at congestion, the research shows that there is no one single measure that you can use to define congestion, but it's a combination of multiple dimensions. The amount of time you're in congestion, the intensity of it measured by delay, and the variability in the congestion, which is measured by planning time index. So we measured all of this using the data available, and when you then you combine them, the corridors that you see on the network on this map here were identified as congested networks, congested segments from these three dimensions. Similarly, for safety, we looked at all the crashes that have happened, including fatalities and serious injuries, but also other minor injuries, possible injuries, and the property damage only. And we, using the guidance from the Federal Highway, we developed weighting factors to determine equivalent property damage only in terms of to get a weightage for all the crash severities. So using that, we identified the congested segments, but also top 25 intersections, which have high amounts of crashes. So that's what you see here. And then finally, we looked at identified segments from resilience perspective, which are affected by storm surge, sea level rise, and a 500-year flooding. We wanted to make sure to be consistent with the DOT, the DOT Resilience Action Plan, the data and used for that. And these roadways show up as hotspots or roadways to consider from a resilience perspective. We'll switch to the map in a minute. So what we also did was we're looking at congestion and safety. We wanted to identify a case study where we can look at it at a very high level. And I think the Hillsborough Avenue, similar to the previous presentation, we identified as having both congestion and safety challenges that would be used to identify protection strategies. So I think connection to the previous study as well.
Yes, and just a quick, I just wanted to note too that this was done entirely separately from that previous study. We were not in conversation, it just both through our own methodologies, we both identified Hillsborough app. So probably signals the Hillsborough app should be focused on. And then obviously smart technology is something that would be a potential strategy to look at. So with that, should I transition over? Beautiful. So very high level, quick overview here. Make this load up a little bit. So here, just through all the various data that we have been collecting, here is the overall CMCP network. And we basically selected these roadways because we have consistent, reliable data that comes in from all of them. and that they are all above threshold we picked, which was 5,000 AEDT. So it's below that, you're probably not getting a lot of congestion or a lot of crash data coming from there. And so this is the network that we're going to be monitoring. And then we have a variety of different ways that we can slice up this area. So we're looking at congestion overall, like Praveen mentioned, we looked at several different aspects. And so like percentage of time congested for peak period here. You can look at all the roadways, anything that's red is above 50% highly congested in terms of time spent there. Yellow is between 16 and 50%, and green is below that 16%. So that's just one way. And then you can also look at time mildly congested, and you're going to see, of course, much more of the network is at least some percentage of the time mildly congested. And then you can also see the uncongested as well. And so I'm not going to break down every single one here, but you can see that that's one aspect for congestion. We also have, say, daily delay, and you can see a similar type of map here. Obviously, the legend changes a little bit based on whatever the performance measure is. Then going to, say, crashes, we can look at both the overall number of crashes based on the roadways, and then Praveen's team has also taken a lot of that raw crash data and has normalized it in a few different ways. One is doing a per mile for crashes, fatalities per mile, as well as serious injuries per mile. So you can look around and really get some granular data on this network. Then we also have the resilience data that Praveen just showed, just as an example to show you there. And so then, look for me right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, the resilience layer does takes
It takes a little bit, so that's all right, it's not as important. So we're taking all of these components together to then try to identify hotspots. Again, this exercise is not meant to identify specific projects. We're just doing that one case study as an example, but it's meant to be a tool for all of our regional partners, for the city, for the county, for District 7 to take a look at our area and say, oh, well, this thing is lighting up bright red. Maybe this is an area to focus on. And then the idea is to keep collecting the data and come back year after year, or maybe every 3 or 4 years and say, okay, let's take a look. How does the map compare now to when we were looking previously? What treatments have we put on those roadways? What projects have been completed or in the pipeline, and have they had an effect? So that's the purpose of this here. And so we have, actually, Praveen, would you like to speak about hotspots?
So what we presented in the slides is what you see here, but these are more interactive. You can zoom in, zoom out. What I'm showing here is the safety related hotspots from congestion and intersections as well. What I will do is I'll turn this off, and then from mobility perspective, that's congestion. I told you about the measures: percent of time congested, planning time index, and the delay per mile. We took those 3 measures, normalized them because each of them had from minimum to maximum various ranges. We normalized them on a scale of 0 to 1, and combined them together to identify the top roadways, which are all of these together. So same with resiliency as well. One of the ways we identified congestion, the case study was that if you look at both safety and resilience perspectives, you see that there are several ways which overlap both of these safety and congestion aspects. And Hillsborough Avenue, it falls has that similar issues. On top of that, having 2 or more intersections in those top 25 from a safety perspective. So that was one of the reasons we selected the Hillsborough Avenue. In addition to this, we will be developing a suite or a toolbox of strategies that can be considered for project identification of strategies to alleviate these hotspots.
Yeah. And so generally with that, we just wanted to show you this again as we have progressed a little bit more in the project, and then we'll be going in front of the board later on. So we're not asking for a vote or anything. We just wanted to show you what we had, and if there are any thoughts or comments or anything you want to see added or explored a little bit more, now is the time. Our ears are open.
Thank you. This is a lot of good information. Is this readily available yet for us to look at?
So we were planning on being able to share this with everyone. We have shared it out in the past, so I can send this map along to you. And I believe for each day, you're going to try and keep that maintained and not change the address, right? For right now, we'll in the future. Yes. But yes, we'll be able to share this so you can explore.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah.
So it's Hillsborough County only right now.
But everything within Hillsborough County, so City of Tampa, Plant City, Temple Terrace, yeah.
Is it expanding to the whole area or? no?
It will not go to all of District 7 just because Hillsborough TPO project, so we're just
Okay.
looking at our own region. Our own area. Yeah.
I have a question for the segments. So it says it's the safety hotspots, it's crashes per mile, sorry. Property damage only per mile, right? But are the segments the same length?
So that's a good question. That's one of the reasons why we normalize that by per mile, because the segments are of various lengths. And we looked at two different ways to normalize them. One is by mile, or the other one is by BMT. We looked at it both ways. There are pros and cons, and there is no right or wrong.
Right.
If you look at by normalizing by BMT, the chances are of rural areas of the TPO that having the lower BMT could be identified as hotspots. The challenge with that is those rural areas will have potentially lower crashes. That means that those rural portions will be overweighted compared to the urban areas.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we went with per mile so that we have an equal vacation.
And my last question is, do you have any sense how come you have intersections that are just the intersection without any roads around them being congested? Like, for example, those two there.
Yeah.
That's a good question. That's something that we're still exploring, and that is one of the reasons why we looked at these intersections as a separate aspect. There could be some aspects that are intersection specific that are coming up for those two locations where there is no congestion, there's no safety, but they are from a intersection related.
Yeah. So that tells me that maybe a timing or a geometric, change could solve that problem.
Yeah.
If it's just intersection.
And that was also noted too, specifically those two dots on.
And there's one of the
TAC.
south as well, yeah.
Yeah, right over there. It's a little bit of a.
Yeah, you're right.
So you're right, this also has a touch of it, but you're right, this one on State Road 60 is totally disconnected from anything else.
And we're going to double check, make sure all our dots are, nicer dotted.
Yeah. Absolutely. Great thing about switching the center in here. Great.
I'm curious, could you jump back to that one, the crashes associated with speed?
So just,
Speed.
yeah, a specific one.
That's enough.
Great. This data comes in from the Signal 4 data sets, and we wanted to look at number of crashes where speeding is attributed. And this is just a pure count by itself. So we wanted to see, it's a subset of the overall counts. So that's basically what it is. What you see here, major roadways where, like, for example, I-75 and 275, those are do come up, but also several of these arterial roadways as well.
Right, and that's what, we're interested in the city, we're definitely interested in looking at speed and how speed. Yeah, and there's the severity of the crash is significantly influenced by the speed, so.
Exactly, and the strategies that you may develop would be different or appropriate with for those speed limits.
And then we're definitely interested in, cycle lanes, having shorter cycle lengths in the off-peak periods.
Yeah.
Because if you have really long wide green bands, people can speed along the corridor, thus it has no effect on the crashes.
Data set, so I'm guessing you put it on a table here, is that being maintained or it's just one snapshot that you copy in the table and use for this experience? Yeah, yes.
No, so I think that's a great question. So it is a snapshot right now. We have some of it, like for Signal 4 was from 2021 through 2025. So it's not just 1 year, it was a lot of data, but what we've done is we have a meticulously collected spreadsheet where with every single indicator, what goal it's attached to, and then what that data source is. We spent a lot of time iterating about what data sources to include and which to exclude, because we only want those sources that are regularly updated. so that when we come back to this in a year or 2 years or 3 years, we can easily one-to-one just add the new data in, but it's not live currently.
I wonder if Signal 4 already has like a layer defined that you can just add here and it will be automatically updated. You know?
That's, yeah, I'm interested in exploring that further. The funding do not allow currently for the scope of this specific project, but that's something for the future I really want. Yeah.
One thing I would also mention that this CMCMP project will also include like a monitoring plan at a high level on which data sets are available, at what frequency that TPO can update, and more details. That'll help for periodic updates.
Just the last thought, whenever, my experience, whenever you're deciding those levels, for example, what you're showing your speeding count, right? Sometimes it doesn't make sense to decide, 1 to 4, 5 to 10, and then just arbitrary versus allow the data to tell you where the breakpoints might be. Just because if you look at this map, for example, right now, you see them all over the place. So if you really wanted just the majority of crashes, right, you have to allow the data to show you that breakpoint instead of choosing, we're gonna go with 20 to 20, whatever it is.
Absolutely not.
Right, so those breakpoints might not be equal, but it doesn't matter. It's about what the data shows.
Yeah. And again, that is something we've discussed internally, and I know this team's working a lot. I'm not exactly sure if that was natural breaks or.
Right, typically we use not natural breaks, but I don't want to say here.
Yeah, I'm just not quite sure for this one specifically, but yeah.
Excellent. Any more comments, questions? Anyone online? Any comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. All right, thank you very much. Good work.
Thank you for.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, that closes our updates, status reports, old business and new business, transit signal priority discussion. Harry, since you're on the podium, you want to go ahead and take that?
Absolutely. So there's no presentation or specific item here. I just wanted to take a moment to discuss in our livable roadways committee, there was some discussion about bus traffic signal prioritization and generally the expression of support for it. And we're trying to figure out exactly how they could show that, and it ended up with our executive director wrote a letter in support to the board, just saying that there is support out there for bus TSP. And so we generally have some folks in the room here that this is relevant to, and I just sent out a few kind of thought questions, basically thought-provoking questions. And I know we do have Omar Gazada from Parks. Thanks for being here. It's sitting here the whole time. But we have Park, we have City, we have County, we have District 7, Thea. So we wanted to just kind of get going and see, so what is, if we wanted to advance bus TSP in our region here, what is the thing that is stopping us from doing it? What needs to be addressed first? And then who should be leading the charge? Who meaning like what organization is the one that kind of should be pushing for it most effectively? Is it a coalition of groups? I just kind of wanted to start it there. I don't know if anyone has any particular thoughts or if there's any other background you wanted to add before that, but that's kind of the start of the discussion. I mean, generally, is there support for bus TSP?
Yes, so the city, with our signal system, the Final Light, we've updated the system, we've worked very close with the Final Light, and I think we've come over many hurdles of what we've had in the past. There continues to be chatter to make it sync up and work. I may give a report, but it's a bunch of numbers and lines that I don't understand yet. So we are now being able to report data. I don't know what the disconnects are. We haven't like unified the communication between TSP and then the buses and Swiftly, between Econolite, or I should say Centrex and Swiftly, and how those are interfacing to help. I don't know what the results are yet, but we do have data and it appears to be functioning. I don't know what that exactly means. Maybe Omar, maybe you do.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add to that, just again for context, and you mentioned it at the Livable Roadways Committee, they brought forward a motion for kind of the TPO to send a letter to Park, kind of voicing support for just us to kind of start getting the ball rolling on TSP, and that involves
HART, working with the city of Tampa, and also working with our folks at Hillsborough County as well, because it's, you know, looking at the city roadways and county roadways, and then also getting FDOT in that conversation as well. I think, and I know Dexter is on the call as well. He's our director of IT at HART, so if I say anything out of line, just let me know. But I think kind of the first piece of that is looking at the HART fleet and just the technology on the bus. From where we are now, our current HART bus fleet is capable of TSP, it's capable of taking us on a ready generally. So generally ready, yeah. And we are doing some additional technology improvements for our CAD AVL system. And those should be wrapped up by the end of this calendar year as well. So, you know, you were mentioning with the Swiftly integration, Swiftly is what HART uses for all of our real-time data and all of our on-time performance metrics and reporting as well. So that'll make that data better, including on the transit app or on Google, when you see the bus and, you know, where the location is, it'll improve that, the ping rate on it as well. So on the HART side, I think, you know, we're TSP ready, for lack of a better term. But I think the other piece of it is, you know, I think, and it's gonna take, I think, sitting down with the city and again, FDOT and county, and I think it's just, we need to kind of, you know, maybe hash out these details more about what it takes to turn on TSP on certain corridors. And then I think it's also on parts as well to kind of identify some routes and maybe like some pilot corridors that we want to look at as well. So I think there's a few pieces that I think at a staff level we need to kind of figure out, and that includes, I think, Margaret with your group and also getting FDOT and the county on board as well. Okay, thank you for all that.
So for the next step, will HART meet with the different agencies? Like, will you reach out to the city and sit down and work things out with Econolite and Centrax? Have a discussion, or
I think
is it more of a, and then meet with Hillsborough County, or is it gonna be like everyone come together, let's talk TSB and see where we are?
I actually, now that you mentioned that, I think actually that might be a good start, is to kind of have like the big group discussion, just so we're all like kind of on the same page of like, you know, like what's possible, you know, what is, for lack of a better term, like kind of turnkey with transit signal prioritization, and what if it's not turnkey, like what work in the background needs to happen as well. Because I know a lot of, and I'll just speak at a staff level, like all the conversations we've had regarding TSP, it's kind of like, you know, we have our coordination meetings with you, and it's like we talk about it a little bit. It's okay, yeah, we'll get to it, but you know, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of different priorities, and I think it's just kind of like really focusing in on it, and then, you know, turning it on. And that's kind of the same with the county as well. And I know at the county level, with Venkat's group, I forget what his department is called off the top of my head. But I mean, he's kind of voiced to us at the HART level, he's like, yeah, we're ready for you guys to kind of, for our staff to let them know like what corridors they want to kind of pilot and try on to turn on the TSP on some slip corridors. So that's kind of been our staff support right now with the county. But I think we have all the like different conversations going on with all the different jurisdictions, and then also factoring in Econolite as well, in their role in the process as well. So I think it would be good maybe to have the bigger group kick off, and that's something that at the staff level, my team can kind of get started on sending that out.
That sounds good. I see Julie has her hand up. Let's hear from her. I've got an idea about that, but yeah. Julie?
Yeah, Margaret, I was just gonna say I agree with you. I think we should have a higher level, because we need to make sure that both, because unfortunately, well, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, we get to test different systems, but the county and the city do not have the same signal management software. So we want to make sure that whatever technology HART or whoever is choosing can work with both systems. So I agree with Margaret, and I think a higher level, this is where we are, would be great. I would really appreciate that.
So we can, I mean, we have to take a look at this from different perspectives. One of them is the infrastructure and architecture, which is some of what Julie's mentioning, what is required. And, what's gonna be the common thing, right? If you have a bus or something that's gonna go through different municipalities, gonna go through different systems, then, you make it work with all of them. That's one thing to talk about. The other thing is, like Venkat mentioned to you, what are the corridors, where do you wanna do this? Because that also is gonna affect how we start.
Right.
Then the, of course, it's gonna be a little bit of, how we fund this, how we implement this. So all those things have to be discussed.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think at the hard staff level, I think, and I'll get with my team as well, just to kind of like maybe identify, I mean, I know the on the city side, you, Margaret, and then on the county side. Brian, do you work with the county? I'm sorry. Is that?
Yes, I work with the TMC, so
Okay.
we actually report to Venkat.
Okay, so Brian and then Venkat, get you guys on that, and then I think someone from FDOT as well. Not sure, I think I can figure out who to identify on that end. We kind of be, there you go. Look at that. Got it in the room. I like it. So,
I had one more thought,
Yeah.
though, because the Living Roadways Committee, that's right, Living Roadways,
yeah,
livable roadways, yeah. Would it be beneficial to have them come in there, because they're like, what is the end goal? We can work out the technology side, but what are they really wanting to see accomplished? So it might be a little bit as a first step. Because they didn't even know we were already working on TSB. It just was a bubbling to the top for us. So all of a sudden it became a hot topic, and it seems like it would have a community building relationship if we could have them come and meet, we are all working together, and maybe they're almost leading that conversation with the intent of what's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
And then, but at the same time, so we all can see, okay, what's on the horizon, and what are we really trying to achieve? And then we can, as we solve the issues at the technical side, we can always circle back around and go, okay, we're all still heading in the same direction, with the same purpose. And because of their level being that higher level for serving the entire community, I think it might have a synergy that will take on a very positive light. And it may even influence, like, if there is a financial commitment to advance any of this technology, they could help influence an advancement of a project in some way.
Can I offer a comment to that? Sorry. Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. I think that's a really excellent and innovative idea, Margaret. Just a couple pieces of context to our Livable Roadways Committee.
Yeah.
They're an advisory body to the TPO board. So I love the idea of them being a stakeholder, but I wouldn't recommend them driving it. Councilmember Hurtak from the city of Tampa, she's the chair. She's a loud transit advocate. I think bringing her in, or so maybe even the vice chair. I think we should need to be careful though, since they're advisory to the TPO board. I think they're important to be there, but I wouldn't want to just take direction from them, just given the advisory nature of that committee.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
I'll say this too, because I'm the heart representative on the Livable Roadways Committee as well. So I think it I play this kind of like, interesting, I guess, sort of middleman position as well, where I'm like like on one hand, I'm hard staff, and on the other hand, I'm like, on the committee, I guess, as well. So it's like, I think I can play a role in, any of the progress or anything that, like when we have that meeting or when we kind of like start to get the ball rolling more on getting in depth and towards like implementation of any TSV, I think I can kind of communicate that to the Livable Roadways Committee as well, either like the whole business or just something like that as well.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if you ever got because I think the letter from Livable Roadways Committee that was drafted by TPO staff on behalf of Livable Roadways Committee, then sent to HART. So there's actually some good language in it too about kind of why they were wanting us to pursue this transit signal prioritization. And I can send that over to your staff and Brian, your staff, and FDOT staff as well. Because really, I think it also gets down to just the fact of, making transit more of a attractive alternative, dealing with like
better on-time performance, reducing travel times, improving the reliability. So they had some good language on that as well that I can kind of provide as far as like why they're so invested in it and making like transit a more attractive alternative compared to driving or other modes as well.
Right, it is a viable choice. Yeah, frequency and reliability,
Exactly.
same mantra they've been singing for 4 years, so.
So we're also, I know we're a few minutes over time, so I just wanted to kind of tie this up in a bow. So it sounds like, Omar, you're gonna be kind of get the ball rolling with some of these meetings, and then as a TPO staff, we're happy to support and facilitate it wherever we can.
I appreciate it.
And it sounds like you'll go back to the LRC and just kind of mention some of the things that were said today or next week, something like that.
I think that sounds good. And, you know, I think kind of to the point I mentioned earlier, I mean, I think TSP, it's been something that's been like, we've been working on a lot, like in the background, just like kind of talking about it. But I think like it's, you know, it's just like at the staff level, we get busy with like this thing coming up or this thing coming up. So it's just like finding time to really like sit down and like, you know, come up with a game plan of how we want to implement this and, you know, looking into it more. So I think on the hard side, I think, you know, I appreciate on the local roadways committee side that they brought the item to this like a little bit of fire to, you know, get this in. I think it'll be a good thing. Like, you know, just looking into it and it'll be better for the riders. It'll, you know, like kind of what was detailed, like improve the on-time performance, reduce travel time. So I think it'll be good in a lot of ways. I think it's just like getting the kind of work done in the background to make it come to fruition.
Sounds good. All right, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the next agenda item is to adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone for your participation and contributions to the conversation. It makes a huge difference. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Since you already paid for it, but you already paid for your parking, so. I'm going next time.